Hi everyone, Monica Moore here. I'm a nurse practitioner and a health coach at Connecticut. And on this edition of Ask Monica, we're going to answer a pretty common question that is very stressful for anyone who is going through fertility treatments and even anyone that isn't and is newly pregnant. And that is, why do people bleed in the first trimester? So, gosh, as a nurse and nurse practitioner, I think the majority of my calls and wanting to make somebody feel better, emergency calls at night are about this because it's scary. There are a few reasons that people can bleed in the first trimester of pregnancy, but I think our mind goes to kind of the bad ones. One is that we never find a reason. We never see anything by ultrasound. Maybe there's a little bit of what we call implantation bleeding, but we do ultrasounds and everything looks good. Another is where there's bleeding between, kind of behind, where the sac or pregnancy is implanted, where the placental attachment is. And so we call that subchorionic bleeding, or even a scary word called subchorionic hemorrhage, even though the word hemorrhage is scary. And I don't know why we use all these scary words, but it just means a bleed, and then we're able to detect it by ultrasound because it looks black. Any kind of fluid in the uterus looks that way. Often people do very well after they have had this, but we would tell you to rest for 24 hours, kind of minimize activity, increase fluids, because sometimes being dehydrated can cause smooth muscle to contract, which the uterus is. But really often there is nothing that you did that caused this, and there's nothing that you're doing that would prevent this from happening or fix it, so to speak. So the resting is based on one or two kind of small studies that show that it might be helpful. Of course, everyone's mind goes to pregnancy loss, and if you have bleeding that is heavy like a period, particularly accompanied by cramping, usually we want you, if it happens in the evening, unless you're bleeding really heavily and you're scared. If you're bleeding really heavily and you're scared, call the emergency line. If you're not sure, call the emergency line. But if you're bleeding a little bit and you're not sure kind of what's going on, we want you to rest. Call us in the morning, and depending on when's the last time we saw you, what your blood levels are, if using your blood levels as a guide, we are able to see anything by ultrasound, often we will have you come in, maybe do a blood test or an ultrasound to just kind of reassure you at that point. And should anything concerning be happening, we would go over your next steps with you. So I would like to say that many people that have healthy babies and deliver full term have bleeding in the first trimester. It's incredibly common. As I mentioned before, probably the majority of our phone calls when we're on emergency call have to do with this topic, and the majority of women that have this end up having a healthy pregnancy. So that is actually the default as opposed to pregnancy loss. But certainly if it looks like you're having a pregnancy loss or a pregnancy that implanted in the wrong place, a place other than the uterus, we would see you, manage you, and give you ideas with next steps. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that reassures you in some way. As always, please feel free to ask us any questions, express any concerns, let us know your thoughts or comments below. Thanks so much.